Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Ron. Sunday morning already, a little after 11 a.m. So we'll go ahead and get started. Let's see. On yesterday, we started off with a question, and the question was about prayer. Someone asked a question about praying with, multiplying words, but we with no action behind it. And it led to a very open discussion about Christianity, about what prayer is, faith versus being spiritual and spirituality, and even talking about Christianity. And one part thing, yes, sir. Someone say something? Okay. But one thing in particular, we talked about, Barb brought up to us being conduits. And we talked about that so often, how spiritual we are, and we being the flow of energy in the earth and how we influence that. So uh, good discussion, Lisa. I thought, I'm sure it's something that I'm missing because I'm not going into detail about it. But is there anything about that discussion that you want to elaborate on, or you want to ask any questions about before we move forward? And if you don't have any questions there, do you have any questions on anything else that may have come across your mind over the last 24 hours?
I have a question. Yesterday, we elaborated on the difference between spirituality and faith, I think it was. Could we go over that one more time, please?
Okay, class, anyone wants to get us started? Spirituality and faith. I think Pastor and Barb did a lot of that part of that conversation, but anyone else that Pastor Barb or anyone that want to follow up on the question, please.
Barbara, subject.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I'm trying to remember what I said. um, I talked about religion being things that we do as opposed to being what we be. When we come from a place of what we be, understanding that we are the spiritual essence of everything, that we are created from energy, a source of energy that is everything and has all potential in it. We have access and are that same potential too. And so when we respond from a place of our spiritual essence based on the principles of the universe, the principles of Maya, that kind of thing, the way we respond is different from how we respond if we simply react, meaning we react to an external source or force or action based on our ego. And our ego is boxed in. It only has certain parameters that it responds from. And basically, it's from the, if you get pushed to the corner, it's that selfish perspective. But spirituality allows you to respond in a purposeful, spiritual way rather than to react to any kind of way that somebody or the environment pushes your button, in a sense.
Okay.
That's probably a little different from what I said yesterday, but I think the concept is the same.
It resonates the same. Thank you.
We also talked about spirituality being a seed, like a seed that's planted in the soil, and it's germinating. it becomes what it needs to become, not what we want it to for our own selfish desire, but when we plant, when we come from that place of our essence, what we plant in a sense in the universe is what manifests. When we come from a place of our ego, our religious aspirations that we've learned and taught to us, it's basically from a place of selfishness. And so the seed of selfishness germinates and becomes selfishness, anyway, that's another way of saying it too.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Some came to mind when Barbara said that about spirituality being like a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Spirituality is rooted in a dark place as it reaches for the light of understanding and experience. And that dark place is the wisdom of truth that spirituality is rooted in. And the desire to understand oneself is what inspires the roots to find a deeper place in wisdom and truth for the express purpose of stability as we reach for enlightenment. And the reason there must be stability is because there is so much in this earth that presents itself as being enlightening, yet there is no light in it at all. Especially the primary religions of the world, well, all of them really, present themselves as being a source of enlightenment, but there is no light. And if we are unable to recognize the power of being rooted in the dark truth of wisdom, then we will never see true light. We will only rest in artificial light that has no power to sustain life or to give life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that, Patsy. Anyone have anything to add? Ms. Famil, are you good? Did that answer your question?
Yes, all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, everyone.
Does anyone have anything else from yesterday that you want to add? That doesn't have to be that particular topic. You know, are there any other?
I wonder if somebody would expound a little bit more on being a giver of life. And I don't mean. I mean, what does it mean to be a giver of life?
Okay.
Well, I want to respond to that before I do. No one? And in order to be a giver of life, you have to first be aware that you are life. And once you become aware that you are life, it is then that you ask yourself the question, what is life? What is the source of this life that I am? And that begins the search of self, because if we are life and we're searching for the answer to that question, then we're truly searching for ourselves. And as we do that, we begin to see those things that the wisdom of those things that we have been taught and those things that we were not taught. And that changes the trajectory of our lives. And I'm not talking about vocationally or career-wise. I'm not talking about that trajectory. I'm talking about the trajectory of thought. It changes our thought patterns. It changes our interaction with each other. And as that interaction changes, others begin to see something or to experience something in our presence that they have not experienced before. And they say things like, you are different, or they say things like, I find peace when I'm in your presence, things like that. And that in itself is the beginning of our understanding that we're life givers. Have you ever spoken with someone and they said to you, you changed my whole demeanor simply by talking with me today? Nothing in particular, just a hello or anything that appears to be menial to you. And you have a positive effect on their life. You lift the spirit. You lift them from depression. You lift them from, you remove them from a place of anger, or you remove them from a place of a dislike for themselves. Now, in that regard, we are given life. It is hard, for me anyway, to explain in detail because I'm not quite familiar with the details of it at this time, even though I desire to be extremely familiar with it. I also believe that in understanding life, and I'll expand on this later on if necessary, in understanding that we are life and understanding the source of that life, it is the source of spiritual life that I talked about earlier by being rooted in the ground of wisdom. But it also speaks about the manifestation of life itself in this earth. And that manifestation is the life that we receive from the SUN, the Son. And both of those are very necessary in order for us to live a balanced life and be able to give balance to life for those in our environment, immediate environment, as well as for those globally. Thank you. I hope that that response is okay. Questions or comments, please.
Good morning, everyone. This is George in Philly. In reference to what Barbara, mentioned in terms of being a life giver, what came to my thoughts, was, the scripture that talks about being a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, which is our spiritual worship, and not sacrifice in the sense of death, but in terms of living. And I think that, again, that's something that we do. We sacrifice for our children, we sacrifice for humanity, but to, think of it in the way that you mentioned, Barbara, I just thought about being a living sacrifice. That's what came to my mind. So I just wanted to share those thoughts. I'm done unless there's any questions, comments.
Thank you. Both of those are insightful. Thank you so much. And as you also talked, Pastor, I'm looking at these principles of Maya, which are becoming or being part of our essence. And as you spoke about what life is, and I looked at these principles, I'm peaceful, I benefit with gratitude, I live in truth, I speak with sincerity, I consume only my fair share, which means I'm not greedy. I offer words of good intent. I can be trusted. I care for the earth. I speak positively of others. I remain in balance with my emotions. I listen to opposing opinions. I create harmony. I invoke laughter. I am open to love in various forms. I am forgiving, kind, respectful, accepting, and I follow my inner guidance. I do good. All of that all of that are seeds that I see are planted, which give life to others. And I'm not talking about just life just for the sake of being a walking dead, but a life as you two basically just described, that sacrifices the seed, if you will, that you sow into others with your being, with your essence. Thank you for the responses.
And Barbara, when you spoke about becoming, the African term in terms of tepera tepsepi means the process of becoming. So we are involving. When we talk about 42 laws of Ma'at, or when we talk about those principles in the term of death and resurrection, when it speaks about death, it talks about I have not, you know what I mean, in terms of death. But when we talk about life, it talks about I will not. And I think that the more that we, can appreciate these foundational principles, it becomes more of a way of lifestyle that, as you were saying, Barbara, that we can appreciate the new life. When I say new life, I can't recall the scripture, but it talks about the new man, old things are passed away, all things become new. But just in all of our thoughts and our thinking, the bottom line is our actions. And so I appreciate, what you shared, Barbara, in terms of the becoming aspect of where we are. Again, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you.
This is Sheldon.
Hey, Sheldon.
On the heels of everything that has been said, and when Barbara first posed the question as well, going along with, like I said, what's been said since then, I see giving life, or looking at it as an analogy, is the same way that we think of what the sun does for the physical. It is the same thing that we're doing, or what is taking place when one is given life, but also on a spiritual level. When Barbara just read out some of the 42 laws of Ma'at, it is teaching or showing, guiding one how to set themselves up to freely, in a sense, support or feed or energize creation in the same way that the sun does for the physical. And in doing so, not inhibiting and giving that freely, not only energizes creation, but also energizes creation to the point where it is able then to, in a sense, energize as well. So when Barbara is walking around in her daily life, or something as small as said, and she is meditating on the 42 laws of Ma'at and being open and not even realizing it, because she is just coming and energizing others, they too are then able to go in the world and do the same thing. After Barbara also, in a sense, opens that same thing up in them, even that which lies dormant within. Thinking about it from a physical standpoint, the sun doesn't, I don't want to say hide itself, but meter itself in terms of the energy that it expels. It comes freely. So it's, in the bigger picture, I see in terms of giving life, it is a constant cycle of creation, constantly supporting and energizing and providing life to its self, that is being, in a sense, a co-creator. That's, well, because I haven't thought about it before Barbara asked the question, but like Pastor Richard said, trying to figure out, I guess, words, how to describe it. I'm done.
Sheldon,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, Sheldon, that's where I was going to, the plants or the trees, you mentioned that. I think Pastor mentioned that, and Bart mentioned talking about the plants, but you know that's what photosynthesis is. It converts the sunlight into the energy that the plant could use, and that turn that to you know or water. It turns it to carbohydrates, and it feeds the plant so that the plant can produce food for itself, and in response, everything else lives from the plant. So it not only gives off oxygen after this, as a result of the interaction with the sun, but it produces fruit for mankind and for animals as well. So from the spiritual perspective, that's a great example. Uh, does anyone else, can anyone else go into it a little bit differently? If you look at it from a plant and the photosynthesis of it, what is it that the sun is actually doing in the physical body that makes us who we are in this search as we move forward? That's a great example.
Um,
I
One
love
thing
the
before,
idea.
Go ahead.
yeah.
I love the idea, Michelle, of what you said about dormancy, because what we understand now that we understand it is that every single person has all of these seeds, these principles in them. They're just dormant. And part of the life giving is exposing those seeds to the sunlight of enlightenment so that they begin to get the appropriate nourishment. And unlike just the tares, then the wheat, or the real fruit of who we each are, begins to expose itself and is good for nourishment of not only us, as you said, Ron, but for everyone else.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
I was going to say,
What was that, Rev?
no, go, I think Sheldon didn't use yours, say what you, because I'm
Okey
going
dokey.
to, I'm going to respond to
All right, then.
photosynthesis. So go ahead.
Okay. The only thing I was going to say right quick in response to Ron, when he was talking about the plants, the one other thing is that how creation is constantly energized and they're giving life to itself. If you notice, everything is also playing like certain roles. So, for example, the what the sun essentially does for quote unquote the human being and what the sun does for the plant is two different things, but even those two are then giving life to one another as well. So in a sense, it's giving what is need for creation. The creation is constantly working together and playing a role, you know, of itself, kind of like a special role as well. And then the one last thing right quick, when Barbara mentioned the dormancy, just going back to the 42 laws of Ma'at as well, it's still being, there are many ways in a sense for that dormancy to, in a sense, come alive or be woken up. Just as Barbara was mentioning, her actually, or a human being energizing another person, bringing in that dormancy, it's the same thing that she is doing as well as she focuses and meditates on the 42 laws of Ma'at. She is nourishing, in a sense, waking up or enlivening, or if you want to think about it from a plant, giving fresh soil and sunshine to that which was lying dormancy or wasn't fully awake in her as well, so that she can, it's almost like we're being our full selves when we are being fully open, when we realize and understand that we don't have to meter ourselves or limit ourselves, et cetera. That in a sense, the more that you're able to give, or we're able to give with confidence, the more then we're able to give. The only thing that can limit us is ourselves and what we actually believe and what we're willing to practice. I'm done.
Yeah, that is a mouthful. We limit ourselves. Pastor, you want to go ahead before George because you were going to speak to
I
the
wanted
question.
to see if George is related to Melanie before, I mean, related to what we took for the census and the son before I speak, okay?
George, will
Hey,
you speak?
thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Good morning. Based upon the question or the statement one of the females stated about being a good giver of life, in order to be a good giver of life, have to be a very good receiver of life, and vice versa. In order to be a good receiver of life, you have to be a good giver of life. One without the other, we are very much unbalanced. Brothers that I know that they
Okay.
always give, I have to politely remind them, make sure
Thank you,
you do
George.
for yourself now. Oh, okay, doke then.
Did anyone want to respond to George's or ask a question? Okay. That's another subject that hopefully one day soon we'll get to, is taking another look at balance and where we are with that. We touched on it last week, but I got a note on it somewhere. I was going to ask something, but go ahead. Anyone else?
Would everyone make sure that your phones are muted, please? Or your computers, whatever. Thank you.
Pastor, are you next?
Yes, I wanted to make a statement about humans in relationship to photosynthesis. We have been taught that photosynthesis.
Pastor, are you speaking?
I am. You can't hear me? Hello?
Did we
Can
lose
you
you?
guys hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay,
We can
Ron,
hear you.
okay, Ron can't hear me. Okay. He's frozen. What I want you to say is that in
Okay, while
reference
we're
to
waiting on Pastor,
photosynthesis.
did anyone else have a
No, I'm
question
here.
or comment?
You were frozen. Ron, you were frozen. Everyone heard me?
Ron, can you hear me?
Would someone send Ron a text, please, and let him know we cannot hear him?
Pastor, you might try logging out and coming back in, see if that
No.
helps.
No, Ron, everyone can hear me except you. He is not here. He's not
Can you
hearing
guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You just can't hear us. Or can you? Anyway, let me try make an effort to complete this
Yes.
thought. We were talking about photosynthesis.
Okay, thank you.
And photosynthesis, we've been taught about photosynthesis in relationship to plants. However, we've not been taught about photosynthesis in reference to people, to humanity. One of the reasons we have not been taught about photosynthesis when it comes to humanity is because of racism. During the Vietnam War, soldiers who died in combat or died, period, in Vietnam were their bodies were sent back to this country for autopsies to be performed. And during the course of performing the autopsies, the pathologist dissected the brains of the soldiers. And this was the first time that they made this discovery in humans. And that is, they discovered that the African soldiers had a huge amount of melanin in their pineal gland. And in the pineal glands, they found that the soldiers, the African soldiers rather, had a larger pineal gland than was found in Caucasian soldiers. They found that also that there was a huge amount of melanin in the pineal gland of the African soldiers, or the Black soldiers who were autopsied. And they found that they began to understand rather that the importance of melanin in terms of its quantity when found in the body. The pineal gland was not only smaller in Caucasians, in the brain of Caucasians, but it also contained melacite, which is a substance or a chemical that processes or produces melanin through photosynthesis. So, having said all of that, what happened is no one wanted to admit it. And what they did not want to admit is this: that melanin has a person pineal gland. The size of it has everything to do with the level of spirituality, enlightenment, the presence of melanin, the ability to produce it, etc. No one wanted to talk about that because of the small pineal gland that was found in Caucasians. And no one really wanted to talk about the reality of how photosynthesis affects the body. Melanin is affected by everything in the universe in terms of its production. Water energy, earth, the energy of the earth, the moon, sun, the whole galaxy, the cycles of the planets, all of that has a bearing on melanin. And with limited amount of melanin, you have limited amount of interaction with the universe in terms of the energetic influences of the universe. What has also been found is that there is an enzyme called, I think it's tyrosine, Tyronase, I think it's tyronase. Well, that enzyme has an effect on melacite. Melacite is in the bodies of all humans. However, you cannot produce melanin without the tyronase. And tyronase is the enzyme that interacts with the energy of the sun to produce melanin from melacite. And this melacite that's produced, I'm sorry, the melanocyte produces melanin. And as a result of that, you end up with darker skin and all shades of skin. And that is the Caucasian does not have, I think I said that earlier, does not have this enzyme called tyrosine. So they are unable to produce melanin. And as we have discussed in the past, melanin has an effect on every aspect of life in this earth. Everything from bodily function to the depth of intellectual understanding. I use that word very loosely, intellect. I use it very loosely. It also has a huge effect on spiritual desires and a huge effect on spiritual activity, which means that it has an effect on the energy in the body, the thought processes of the body, the emotions of the body. and as a result of these findings, of course, the scientists for the most part were Caucasians, and they did not dismiss it, they just hid it. So when we talk about photosynthesis, we are not just talking about the effects of photosynthesis on plant life. We are also talking about the effects of photosynthesis on the life of humans in this earth. And the way I perceive it is that the melanin is a bridge between spirituality and physicality. This whole concept of photosynthesis and melanin cannot be separated from the reality of reality of the chaos that we are currently experiencing globally. Neither can it be separated from the reality of human existence in this earth, nor can it be separated from any of the desires to dominate this earth. The less melanated you are, the more apt you are prone to act out in an adverse manner towards humanity, the earth, and everything else that is in the earth. This is one discussion that I think for the most part, has been scaled back or not discussed at all. Why? Because anything that does not project a totally positive image of the Caucasian is really not spoken of, or it is spoken of in a limited way. However, if it's negativity towards the African, it appears that everyone wants to talk about it. But the thing that gets me the most is this, that the people who are most uncomfortable with understanding the functionality of photosynthesis on the body, especially in regards to melanin, are the people of African descent. And they are afraid of offending white people by thinking about it or talking about it. Quite frankly, if we are going to search for truth, if we are going to walk in the spiritual essence of our being, then we cannot by any means refrain from talking about anything that is true, that is related to spirituality, even if there are those who are offended by it. The question becomes, why are you offended by it? Are you offended by it because you are ashamed of the melanin? Do you not know that melanin is far more valuable than anything, than gold, than platinum, than anything on this earth? And you're ashamed of being melanated? Have we gotten to a place where, are we ever going to get to a place rather, where we are comfortable talking about the reality of truth and the reality of how we are wired. We are wired the way we are, not because of words that we speak. We are wired the way we are because of the Creator who brought us into existence. And if we are unable to truthfully talk about how we are wired, will we ever or can we ever expect to be the spiritual beings or to rise to a place beyond time and space and be the spiritual beings that we were created to be? There are so many aspects to this photosynthesis that involve humans and melanin that we have not even touched upon yet. The other thing that I want to add to that, and then I'll see if there are questions or comments, is this. The whole Bible, the Bible in its entirety speaks to racism. And that is very evident if you know the origin of it, if you understand the origin of religion, if you understand the origin of the written sacred words, we are more able to understand how the Bible deals with this racism. And of course, we have been told the Bible is about going to heaven. However, what other lie have we been told about the Bible or anything else for that matter? Why is it that we are afraid to explore the reality of racism in terms of what the scriptures are talking about, when the scriptures have been used to dig a foundation for racism and to build on that foundation of racism, white supremacy, Christian nationalism, all those things are the same. So I think it's important for us to understand the effects of photosynthesis, because it all starts with photosynthesis of the human body. And then we are able to see the reason that racism exists. I see very clearly the reason that racism exists. Why was it brought into existence? I see it on a material level as well as on a spiritual level. I see the spirituality of it, and I see the physicality of it, or the materialism that's involved in it. Any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you. Oh, we hear you.
Okay.
I have a
Any
quick
questions?
question.
Sure, go ahead.
Are you saying melanin works in the body like chloroplasts work in the plant?
Yes,
So
I am.
melanin is a kind of photosynthesis in the body?
Yes, I am. I'm saying exactly that. I'm saying that the same effect that the sun has on the plants, it has on the body. The difference is that it says the chloroplast is dealing with melanin, the production of melanin, or the lack thereof. And I can delve a little bit deeper into that, and if need be. But all of this is based not on words of politics or race, is based on science as well as visual observation. Audrey?
Okay, could you go into it a little bit? Thank you.
Sure. What I am saying in essence is that the way that we are wired is because of I said it earlier, because of the enzyme that produces melanin is not present in Caucasians. The Caucasians do not produce melanin. Melanin presents itself in colors from every color from yellow to totally black. And the different shades are that Africans are able to produce through intercourse, there's different shades of offspring that Africans are able to produce through intercourse is because of the level of melanin or the melanin that's present within the Africans. When it comes to Caucasians, it does not matter, or in other people for that matter, it does not matter. When it comes to Caucasians, two Caucasians cannot produce a dark child. However, two dark-skinned people could produce children whose complexion is totally different than theirs. And all of this is because of the lack of or the presence of melanin. And as we have said, melanin affects every aspect, especially our emotions. What we have seen is that the melanated people are less prone to violence than non-melanated people. That is not only an observed fact, but is also a scientific fact because of the effect that melanin has on the emotions. So why is it then that this racism has been brought into existence? It's been brought into existence because of the desire for genetic preservation. From the time that Caucasians came in contact with melanated people, there has been a difference made in how they respond to each other. And Caucasians have always responded to melanated people with violence and have always sought to control, destroy, or manipulate them. And in response to that, the reason that the melanated people, even though they were far advanced in terms of understanding spirituality and other things, they did not respond in kind. And as a result of that, melanated people has been defeated and dominated since that interaction. And if we really want to delve into all the ramifications of it, we will see that from the beginning, religion was brought into the earth by Caucasians for the express purpose of them lording themselves over melanated people as God. And that started with, in earnest, with Ptolemy. I had been there before, but Ptolemy took it to another level. Ptolemy being the first Caucasian pharaoh in Egypt of Greek origin. And he forced the spiritual leadership in Kemet / Egypt to capitulate to what his desires were. His desire was to be a god. And when the priests refused to acquiesce, he had them beheaded. However, in the Memphite priesthood, one of the leaders there was named Stephen. And Stephen, out of fear, acquiesced to Ptolemy and named him a god. And that god, Ptolemy Soter, is what he was called. Ptolemy Soter, Soter meaning savior. So it was Ptolemy the savior. And they took the name of Isis, of Osiris, and the bull, which was the symbol of the strength of spirituality, and merged him to Serapis. And that was the beginning of organized religion in the earth. And organized religion in the earth has always been based upon racism and always been based upon domination, and have always been used not only to dominate, not only to annihilate, but also to gain control of land masses. And just as importantly, as our time proceeded, to gain control of natural resources. And we see that being played out to this day. So when I talk about when I made the statement that racism, the Bible speaks in regards to racism, it's because religion itself has been racist from the beginning. Now, what happened, especially with Columbus, when Columbus came to the Caribbean, because he never came to America, when he came to when he arrived in the Caribbean, Columbus did not see Indians, or as people have written about, Columbus saw Africans who had been there for 10,000 years. And everywhere Europeans landed, they saw melanated people. More specifically, they saw Africans or those of African descent in those places. So however you want to term it, still Africans. And as a result of that, they realized that they were a minority in the earth. To this day, white people, Caucasians make up less than 10% of the population of the earth. And there are Caucasians who are seeking to interact with people on the basis of personhood. There are Caucasians who seek to continue to dominate on the basis of white nationalism or Christian nationalism. And there are people who are melanated. And the domination of the white nationalists, the Christian nationalists, is to dominate melanated people and eliminate from power other white people who see everyone as being human beings. The white nationalists have gone the Christian nationalists has gone a step further in this regard, because what they have begun to do is petition school districts to take the children out of school and carry them to a place of indoctrination, what they call Christian training. That their target goal is African kids. And they're doing African kids the same way they did Native American kids. The goal is to indoctrinate particularly African kids, but also white kids in Christian nationalism without calling it that, for the express purpose of genetic preservation. The genetic preservation is based upon what has been colloquially called the browning of America. Well, this is about the browning of the world in actuality. This has nothing to do with just the browning of America. Caucasians have recognized that they are a minority in the earth and their numbers are shrinking. The one thing that Caucasians don't want to be is Black, period. And every one of us on this phone or on Zoom, if you're honest with yourself, you know that to be the truth as well. The one thing, regardless of who they are, they don't want to be Black. They don't want to be melanated because they realize the plight of melanated people in this earth, and no matter what, they don't want it. So they have resorted to something called genetic preservation. And that is where the whole anti-abortion thing comes from. That is where the whole the abortion pill comes from. All of these things are based on genetic preservation. And I'm here to say to all of us today, it is an impossibility for there to be genetic preservation. And the reason being is because it is, as I said, it is impossible for any melanated person to have intercourse and produce an offspring with a non-melanated person and that baby be non-melanated. That's not going to happen. So the inevitable is being fought off, and it's being fought off because those white people, regardless, and the most dangerous ones, liberals, by the way, are progressive, and I can get into that later on. But regardless of who they are trying to preserve skin tone and not spirituality. To the average Caucasian, they are more in love with their flesh, the color of their skin, than they are with humanity. Africans have never had that issue with humanity, being more inclined to maintain quote unquote racial purity, whatever that is, as opposed to bringing balance to humanity or being an asset to the whole of humanity. I hope that helps, Audrey.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions about that?
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank everybody for sending me a text when I couldn't hear you. I appreciate that. I think Barb and Sheldon were talking about things lying dormant. This photosynthesis that you talk about that takes place in the body, does it happen to all the Africans evenly, or do you activate it to a greater degree by being curious about who you are, or is it just happens across the board, so to speak?
Your curiosity does not activate melanin at all. Your
Okay.
curiosity makes you aware that it's there. And your curiosity will push you to understand why it is there and how it functions. What produces melanin is the light of the sun. And we are truly children of the sun, the sun. Regardless of who you are, you cannot live without sunlight. So you say if melanin is the source of life and melanin, the production of melanin is not available in the body of the Caucasian, then how do they live? The melanocyte that was received from the beginning is the life itself. The production of melanin is from melanocyte with the interaction of tyrosine, an enzyme, and that is produced from light itself. No, desire does not produce melanin. Desire makes you curious about what.
I didn't mean produce it. I mean, does it activate
It? No. This is the thing about melanin. The sun activates melanin, and the light in your pineal gland activates melanin. Melanin, the vibration of melanin is always in resonance with the vibration of the universe. It is our thoughts and energy levels that causes melanin, causes us not to function based upon the vibration or the resonance of the melanin itself. We've talked about a education system, a Greco-Roman education system. We've talked about European education that we have been indoctrinated with. It is the energy of this education that causes us to function from a vibration that's lower than what we have been created to function for. The melanin always vibrates in resonance with the universe. And when we begin to travel a journey seeking spirituality, I'm not talking about going to church. I'm not talking about being in field with the Holy Spirit. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm talking about a true desire for truth, and not based on a desire for truth so you can put some race down. No, a desire for truth for the benefit of humanity. When that is the desire, it is then that we began to vibrate in resonance with the melanin, thus with the universe. We have the ability to choose not to resonate with melanin. Melanin feels low energy spots in us. Fear creates a level of low energy, and that's why fear freezes. However, melanin has the resonance with the universe to cause us to rise above these fears. And as we rise above these fears, and we begin to see the true essence of the humans in this earth, it is then that that we have no desire for revenge. we have no desire to destroy anyone. We have every desire to preserve everyone. However, our desire for preservation is not genetic preservation. It is the preservation of humanity, period. This is the African sees beyond this idea of skin tone making you superior or inferior. That makes absolutely no sense, spiritually or otherwise. That only resonates with those who have low energy or low resonance with the universe, or no resonance with the universe, if that's possible. So Ron, I hope I'm answering your question. If not, please rephrase it and I'll offer it again.
Yeah, you are. I guess I'm relating it to something you said when you first started. You and I may have written this down wrong too, knowing me. You said melanin is the bridge between physicality and spiritual. Did you say that?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. That's what I'm referring to, I guess, trying to understand that.
If melanin is the source of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And life exists in this physical body. If there is absolutely no melanocyte or melanin in the earth, your body, you can't see, you can't hear, you can't talk, you can't process. None of that happens. None of it. Melanocyte has to be there. And if melanocyte is not there, melanin is not there.
Okay.
Melanocyte is in everyone on earth. The difference between the two is the enzyme. I think it's tyrosine. The enzyme that produces melanin in conjunction with the sun. Does that?
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Why am I talking about this? First of all, we started talking about it earlier without even realizing what we were talking about, I suppose. But more importantly, the reason I'm talking about this is because the Bible was written for racist purposes from the beginning. It was written as a document that has enough truth to cause it to resonate at a certain level with us. But the design of the fictitious portions of it was for the express purpose of control. There are no writings that comes out of Kemet where you have humans in terms of names doing things like what Moses did. All those things, none of that exists. There was no enslavement of Hebrews in Egypt. There was no crossing of the Red Sea, the way all that's described in the Bible. All of these stories were written there, and included in these stories were some of the truths from the writings of the Kemetans, and we have been indoctrinated more with the untruth than we have with the truth. And now what we are doing, we are pulling at this loose thread and unraveling all of these religions, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, all of them. We are dismantling them so that this wall or this curtain that has blinded us or kept us from seeing, and if you may, into the Holy of Holies, into that space of spirituality. We are unraveling this curtain so that we can see the spiritual nature of everything that is. Now, this is the thing that gets me. I can feel the discomfort of some of you when it comes to our discussing melanin. I can feel that discomfort. Ask yourself, why are you uncomfortable? why the reason we are uncomfortable is because of fear. How many of you hear people talk about the glory of Donald Trump and how God put him in the place where he is? How many of you see all these Trump signs on trucks and people wearing caps and are talking about him? But yet, when you talk about Biden or Obama, you whisper. Why? That's fear. That's fear. Now, why was this whole thing written? For the purpose of domination, because of a recognition of the power of melanated people in the earth, more specifically the African. And the reason that the SUN was replaced with the SON is because there was a desire to be God, as I stated earlier with Telemi. That has always been a European desire to be seen as God. So you bring into existence this Jesus who looks just like a European, and you bring into existence in the mind of people a God who is a white dude with a long white beard judging everybody. When you look at this image of Jesus, and that image of Jesus look just like the one who is oppressing you, look just like the one who you are afraid of, but then that's the reason you whisper when you say certain things. You are less likely to challenge or retaliate because subconsciously you see that European as being God, just like you see Jesus as being God. That is the reason there were absolutely zero physical appearances of God. There were images in Kemet that represented principles, but zero images represented a God or a savior or a deity. They represented principles, not deities, in the sense that we call them deities. And the reason that that was translated as a God or as a deity is simply because these images were manifested, representation of the words, of the energy of our Creator and the aspects of the attributes of our Creator or the character of the Creator, but never any image to even guide us to have an inkling of a belief that a man is to be worshipped as our Creator is to be worshipped. Every one of us, all of the spiritual beings in Kemet knew that they were gods in this earth. They knew that. And that is the reason Ptolemy wanted to be ordained a god, because he believed that it was the priesthood in Kemet who made the pharaoh god, which was a total erroneous perception of what the Kemetan spiritual experience was and is to this day. Does that make sense? I know I'm not the only one who is in listening range, who understands these concepts and precepts. So if you would speak, I would appreciate it. Go ahead, Ron.
It does. I mean, it just kind of hits home when you look at Genesis and it talks about the image and likeness of God. Of course, we've been taught to see a person, and that's that's the part that's you have to erase it. Yeah, it makes sense. Just kind of take a minute, but it does.
Thank you. Anyone else? On what Ron said, the image and likeness of God has nothing to do with your physical appearance at all. It has everything to do with your belief system, the principles that you live by, Mayat, the principles that gives us not only the energy but gives us the desire to interact with each other on the basis of all of us are human and seeking to destroy no one or anything. When we are in this spiritual space, there is the understanding that there is no destruction of anything. Nothing can be destroyed. And it also, we're in this spiritual space. When we talk about love and kindness, we're talking about being in a spiritual space where we embrace everyone without regard to how they present themselves to us. Let me give you an example of what I'm saying. I and Phoebe were walking through the yard, and there is this person who's asking on to. Well, anyway, there's this person who whose behavior is less than desirable. And as we were walking through the yard, this person spoke to Phoebe, and he totally ignores me, which means that he does not see me as a person, or he's denying my humanity by virtue of doing that. Well, that has always happened with Caucasians in relationship to people of African descent. Now, when he did that, I know the dependency that he has on a lot of the things that we're allowed to transpire in relationship to property. And I was going to end that. And then one day it dawned on me, why would you do that? That's not who you are. So I made a decision. I am not going to let anyone change who I am, regardless of how they treat me or their lack of response to my humanity. It doesn't matter. When we are able to do that, it is then that all these ideas of vengeance and getting even, all these things dissipate because of love and kindness. And what I did the very next day, there was a problem that the person was having in their yard with some pests, and I had something that could deal with that, and I gave it to them. And it did not change their disposition, but it doesn't matter. It didn't change me. That's the main thing. It did not change who I am. And I'm the only one who could allow that to change me. We have to believe that we are stable in our spiritual essence, stable to the point where we do not allow anything that's antithetical to that to change who we are. Does that make sense?
Most
Yes,
certainly.
it does.
Yes.
Any questions about this? Before we end, if there are no questions or comments, before we end, I want to say this. We were talking about the things that we are for a reason. I think it was Audrey yesterday made a statement about how we talk differently, or our conversations are different than what they were a few months ago, maybe even a few weeks. And in that, we are talking about who we are more than what we're talking about, more than anything else, rather. We're more understanding of who we are. It is my contention that the reason it's so imperative for us to understand this is not for us to be the fomenters of hatred or anger. It is for us to bring anger to an end. It is for us to bring hate to an end. It is for us to recognize the true nature of what we're being presented with through these manifestations. And these manifestations of racism and all the anger and hatred, all of this comes from the Creator. All of this, everything that we encounter comes from the Creator. And you will ask, well, why would the Creator allow these things to exist? Well, in order for us to be the image of that we were created to be, then we have to be have opportunity to embrace right or wrong, hate or love. We have the opportunity to do that. The choices we make is the thing that guides us to the place of unicity with our Creator. I did not say insult. I said with our Creator. That guides us to a place of elevation above time and space, in a place of spirituality where nothing is produced, where nothing is destroyed, where there exists only potentiality, and within us, when we recognize and embrace that who we are a ball of potentiality because of the energy that we are. And we recognize that we are potentiality in the flesh, in this body, we are potentiality. Then that tells us that we have the potential power to bring into existence a stable environment for all of humanity. However, potential without desire breeds nothing except potential. That's all it is. If you have the potential to drive a car, it doesn't mean that you have driven the car. It means that you have the potential to do that. And if you never get in the car to drive it, the potential lies dormant. And I think this potential that I'm talking about is no different than the dormant power that we have, that I think Sheldon and Barbara alluded to earlier. Remember that potential without manifestation does us no good. Manifest your loving kindness for everyone. Manifest your desire for our humanity to be rooted in righteousness and truth. I'm done unless there are questions or comments. Okay, all right.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's a great place to stop and do some reflecting. So, great day. And again, I remind you, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to me or send them to
Ron. Let me say this. Let me say this while we have this group together, okay? Let me say this. My talking about melanin in relationship to photosynthesis at the African and European is no different than talking about the Eve gene or the gene that's in the mitochondria that has the potential to bring into existence every person on this earth. That gene being in the mitochondria of the African female, period. And no other females on earth possess that gene other than the African females. So this is no different than talking about that. Just like we know that every human on earth came from the womb of an African, we also know that the most spiritual people on earth are Africans. We also know that spirituality is energy. It's universal energy. It's the energy from the universe. So all of these things are related, not only to the Eve gene, not only to the African and his spiritual walk in this earth, but also melanin itself. The most controversial of all is melanin, because the only thing that people think of when you talk about melanin is superiority versus inferiority. And that did not come from the African. It came from the European. Melanin comes from the word melano, male is melano, which is Greek for black. And amine is nitrogen based with hydrocarbons, with more hydrocarbons than usually seen in one space. So from those two words, we get melanin. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Questions or comments, y'all? All right, man. great discussion. I hope everybody have a good day, and look forward to.
Thank you.
Okay, look
I
forward
was
to
talking to you. I'm
tomorrow.
sorry. I'm sorry. I wasn't talking to you.
Okay. All right then. Happy
Happy
Father's
Father's
Day.
Day.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
Happy
guys-
Father's Day to all you guys. Thank you very
Happy
much.
Father's Day. Thank you.
Happy Father's
you.
Day.
Thank
you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Happy Father's Day,
Bye.
everybody.
Enjoy your day.